Hey folks, Steve here. How you doing? Welcome to day 2. Yesterday was all about router patterns, and so I made all of the templates, all of the router patterns from the plans for the Smart Bench. I made them all, including 3 different patterns that came from the Smart Station plans that are not included here because they're specific to that particular bench. But since I was in the process of making patterns, I had the 1/2-inch plywood. Why not just make anything and everything? So there were just 3 differences. All right, well today it's all about breaking down plywood. With that, I have 3 sheets with me, which are the 3 that I'll need to build this Smart Bench. That's all what they call 18mm, which is effectively 3/4 of an inch. I purchased the plans, and I've always purchased these plans. I like the build videos that Ron puts out, but they really are companions to the plans that he sets out with them, and they are well worth the money because they are incredibly inexpensive. I prefer to print them out, but I do have an iPad, and I could have put them on my phone or iPad and just did this all electronically, but I love paper. This really takes the guesswork out of it, or the homework that I have to do, because this is going to tell me exactly what is going to come out of every one of those sheets to maximize the plywood that I have, to maximize the cuts, to get every piece that I need out, and then if I have fall off that I can use later, great. But that is an integral page to this process. So thank you very much, Ron, for including that one, because I'm getting an incredibly late start today. It's just a beautiful autumn day, and we took advantage of it this morning, my wife and I. So I'm getting out here, it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I only have about 3.5 hours of daylight. We'll see what we can do. But breaking down the plywood, that's not going to be any problem. After that, can I make any pieces today? If I do anything today as far as pieces, not just breaking down the sheer plywood into rough cuts, that it will be making the sawhorses. Well, I'll take you along for the ride, and you can see, most likely in fast time, exactly what's happening today. Taking advantage of my amazingly large wood shop out here, I am going ahead and utilizing my door, and I just went ahead and got some tape, and I taped up the 2 relevant sheets today. The top sheet is where everything is coming out of each sheet of those pieces of plywood there. All right, so that's the material layout, and then underneath it is the actual, in metric, because I'm doing all of this with metric. That is the actual dimensions of every piece that I will need today, to include, it's every piece that I will be cutting out today. You have multiples of some, but that's literally every piece. So very, very excited for this. And now what I need to do is get some sacrificial strips on this, and then I need to rack up a sheet of plywood, and I'm going to go big to small. And so the first 2 things that'll get cut out is, from a big sheet I'm going to get the top, from a big sheet I'm going to get the bottom. Those 2 out of the way, then I'll have fall off, and then after that I will process that fall off, because that makes a lot of the other pieces, again according to the cut sheet, the materials layout sheet. The last sheet is full. I could take some of it off, but the last sheet is full because that's where you're going to actually just lay your sawhorse template down, route it out, create 1 sawhorse, and then move the pattern over, and basically it nests in itself, so you get 4 literally all the way across the sheet of plywood on the bottom. You get actually 4 out of that with fall off, and I believe that fall off at the top of one of these sheets would then be your spreader shelf, if I remember I'd have to just walk back there, but if I remember the plans correctly. All right, well, that's what we're doing, and that's how we're going to do it. Okay, there's the original Smart Bench that I built. It's a Pulp compact bench, but I built it 7 instead of 6 foot long. And on top of it, the sacrificial strips, of course, to make sure that I do not cut that bench surface up, and I haven't done so in 5 years. Okay, here it is, the Magic Plywood. Ultralight Plywood, 51 pounds a sheet, $161 a sheet, out of Paradise, which is in Salt Lake City. I'm sure there are other distributors, but I don't know where to get it. So every cut will be measured twice, so I can cut once. I do not want to goof this up. I only have 11 sheets. So of course I'm starting out with the top and the bottom, which are the 2 largest pieces on the bench. Checking for square, of course. I'll do the same thing with this piece. And just making sure I know that I can cut this larger piece of fall off, because I know what's going to come out of it, since Ron on his plans provides a cut sheet as to what will come out of each of the 3 sheets of plywood that you need to build this bench per his specifications. Checking for square, just making sure everything that is going well. And with that, I now have a top and a bottom cut to size, and I have the fall off ready to go for parts. My dust collection system is to allow nature to collect my dust by using a blower and blowing it out into my yard. Oh, there's that Tissot guide rail. Man, for right angle cuts, for 90-degree cuts, that is a tool to have. I am so happy that I found that through Ron or somebody else's video, did the research just to make sure that I had the ability to use it on a DeWalt track. And I could, so I bought one. I think I'm going to buy another. I mean, they're $150, so I'll have to weigh that cost, but I'd like to buy another, I think, so I can have two of them going at the same time on two of my tracks, because I have 3 different tracks. Finally able to use the table saw in order to cut some of this plywood down, break it down into what are most likely going to be the spreaders, which I need 4, 2 outside, each end rather, and then 2 in the middle to support the bench itself. And those sacrificial strips, and of course they are sitting on the material supports on the workbench sawhorses underneath, which is just amazing. When I built the original bench, it's a combination of 3 different benches, a couple of different versions of Ron's. I bought a lot of plans back then, and I purposed his, I want to say the total station sawhorses in order to get the material supports on both sides, and then I built the compact bench. But yet I then used the rail system to support my table saw from his like version 1 table. So it's really a Frankenstein. It's a Pulkenstein. A Pulkenstein bench. All right, finally, now with the last sheet of plywood, it takes 3 to build this thing. With the last sheet of plywood, I certainly have the ability now to get the sawhorses and just nest it, and I'll get 4 all the way across by nesting them. I held the template, that's my router template that I made the previous day or the previous time. With that, I just needed 4 23 gauge headless pins, 1 per corner, to hold that onto the piece of plywood that I'm routing out for the actual sawhorse. Held it just fine, I did make a little bit of a mistake, not in the routing, but just the order of routing. I should have routed out the inside of that sawhorse, because after I relieve it from all of the plywood itself, then it'll move around a little bit, so it's not so stable trying to route out that inside. Corded router, I'm using in that one it's a 1/2 inch upcut spiral with a pattern bushing. That's allowed for in the plans and in the pattern. This one here I am using because of the really tight corners that I wanted. I grabbed my second corded router. I did not, on this day, have a plunge base for it, so I had to actually just kind of lower the bit down in. That was nerve-wracking because you can really easily goof up your pattern, and I did not want to do that. So here I go again with my, there, and you saw that I used the headless, the nailer for the headless pins, 23 gauge. I have the router set up to where it'll plunge 3 different times. It has a plunge guide, and so I just have it set so I can take medium amount, and then finally take the cutout with the 3rd setting. This is the 3rd sawhorse. I started down in the corner, everything tight to the corner and the edge with the feet and the right hand side, I guess. And then you go up, and then you go down, and then the last one will finish up so it nests into the balance of the plywood. You see how it nests there. Again, the 4 headless pins on the corners. I had learned my lesson, and I am now actually routing it out, and I route the inside before I get the final outside routing done. I had to switch over to my cordless router here because I lost power. The whole house literally lost power, don't know why. So I switched over to the cordless router, got it all set up. On that cordless router, I'm running a 1/4 inch upcut spiral and a pattern bushing again. Hey folks, I'm rounding out the first of 4 spreaders, 2 ends, 2 center supports for the smart bench. And my router shuts off right in the middle of, going around. Is the router overheated? But I just started, so it shouldn't have been. The whole house is off, I have no electricity. So I figured, okay, let's switch over. I have a cordless router. I can do all of this with a cordless router. So I scooted out, grabbed my plunge base for the cordless router, and I'll swap that out. I also grabbed a 1/4 inch upcut spiral. I have a brand new one, I'll put that in there. All I need to do is get a pattern bushing so I can actually use this. I'm making 2 installation templates. You only need these for installation, and it's only if you don't want to do the math and make measurements. And so these will actually separate the spreaders, the end spreader from the middle spreader, exactly where you need it to be, centered on the sides where you have screw support. And so I went ahead and made those today. The plans say you need 1, but you actually need 2. You will use them 8 times total in order to assemble if you use those assembly patterns. Using a pattern that I created again the previous day, getting my center line so I can make sure everything is lined up. This is so I can actually route out for the hinge alignment tabs. The hinges will stand proud of the sawhorses, and then they will align in these tab holes right here. And you need 2 on each side. Because of the way the plans are laid out, you actually have perfect alignment by just nesting that in the corner and flushing it up on all the edges, and then you just route it. Here I'm labeling the pattern. I've labeled all my patterns. Not that I think I would throw them away, but just so I know. Making the center hole for the grab handle. On the newer benches, or on some of his newer constructions, he's actually enlarged and squared that hole up. I will do that because it allows for your vacuum hoses that are often larger than that hole would be just as a grab handle. Here I'm simply just rounding over and finishing up the spreader shelf itself. I'm rounding over the sawhorses. I do all 4 of them, of course, and I do both sides. I just like those. Actually, I'm not rounding them over, I'm chamfering them, because by now I have a chamfer bit, 45-degree chamfer bit, and I'm chamfering everything to get that really nice soft edge. Haha, here we go. This is the Parf Guide Mark II system to lay out all 200 dog holes on this roughly 3x6 bench. It's done by metric, but it's roughly 3x6. I learned the night before on a sample sheet of plywood fall off that I had, and I literally did the whole piece of plywood. Well, it was only like 2 foot by 4 foot or something, but or 2 foot by 3 foot. But I learned watching Peter Parfit's video from the New Brit Workshop, and it was just as easy as anything to learn. So confident that I did not consult the video today, I think. I just went ahead and started laying it out and going for it. So at this point, I have parallel holes on either edge at 96 millimeters in. I have a center set of holes, and I am simply moving that Parf stick. It's a meter stick, metal stick with holes. I'm just moving that up a set at a time, and I'm drilling all the way across, of which I'll end up with, I believe, 10 or 11 holes all the way across, 0 to 10, so 11 holes total across before I switch over and do the other side. It's an amazing system, and it allows me to even be CNC perfect. If I can't goof it up, it is foolproof. Trust me on this. If I cannot goof it up, it is foolproof. All of these holes right here are 3 millimeter holes with a supplied drill bit with a stop collar. Also, the holes that you're going into, there is an actual drill guide that you see me moving around and drilling through. So everything is perfectly aligned, everything is perfectly vertical, so you know your holes are going in. And these 3 millimeter holes go all the way through the plywood. I also included a set of holes at 32 millimeters off the edge on all 4 corners. Otherwise, the Parf guide will allow you to easily lay out 96, and it does have some allowance for 32 or 48 millimeter. Here I have flipped my top over, so you're looking at the back side of the top, and I have taken the supplied 20 millimeter Forstner bit, and I am going through and drilling into the plywood about 1/8 of an inch or so, and I am relieving all of the dog holes that I'm going to drill. I'm relieving them so I don't have tear out. This is easily possible because that supplied Forstner bit has an alignment pin that's the center of the Forstner cutter. It's not a cutter itself. It's just an alignment pin that aligns with the 3mm hole that you've already drilled, so you align it perfectly every time. Here I am using the parf pins, the guide pins, and you can see me kind of close up there what I'm doing. The pins allow you to do kind of every other hole. There are a lot of systems on what you can do. Here you can see me aligning with the Forstner bit right there. That's the alignment pin. It's not a cutter. Once you align that, then you just put your pins in and you are ready to go. Once you shift over to using the dog holes to align your system, then you will actually shift over that Forstner bit, which is it's not permanently mounted in that hole, but you have to take a stop collar off and move it over. You're going to move it over to that second hole that you see on the other side of that, just the other side of the Forstner bit, and that allows you to use the dog holes instead of the pins and some supplied alignment dogs in order to actually then align and do the intermediate holes all the way down through. So I'm still getting used to the tool, so I'm not very efficient at, where to go next and how many holes I can get, with one system versus another system. So I'm just kind of roundabout way trying to figure out, I can go here, I can get these holes, I can go over there and I can pin it and I can get those holes. So I'm just figuring it out, but 200 holes later, and it's a magical thing regardless of how you got there. And I had zero tear out underneath, zero tear out. So really cool stuff. I would highly recommend that you hook up the vacuum. At first I didn't use the vacuum when I learned the system the previous night and realized that I needed the vacuum. It just makes an absolute mess otherwise. So if you can use a vacuum, do so. Even though it's cumbersome and gets in the way and just makes the process a little bit stiffer and not so fluid, but it is just absolutely necessary. At this point, you can see that I'm now using the alignment dogs, and I'm using the existing dog holes, and I had to switch my Forstner bit over to the other hole in the center in order to make sure that I am aligned with the dog holes themselves now and not the pins. The stop collar allows me to make sure that I don't go all the way through and into my bench. I'm certainly going through into the sacrificial strips. Here I'm actually doing the chamfer bit, and I'm doing every one of the holes on the top side. I did not do the bottom side. And at first I thought my chamfers might be a little bit too deep, and so I wanted to save the bottom for if I had to re-chamfer, I could just flip the top over and I could re-chamfer with a shallower chamfer in case the chamfer dogs don't work, the ones that I want to buy. So here I'm doing the handle again. I will eventually square that out, so I just have to readjust my template and make a square template so I can fit vacuum hoses, if necessary, up through there in that hole space instead of just using it as a grab hole. Good morning, everybody. Steve here. How you doing? All right, today is a pretty cool day in the fact that today is bench assembly day. I've just stretched this out, working on it when I could. There was nothing dedicated about trying to get it done all in one day. It is certainly a one-day build. It's not a problem to do that. But given the time constraints that I've had and when I could work on it, I stretched it out over... Honestly, this is, I think, the third day I've worked on it or something like that. Just a little bit here, a little bit there, and you have the evidence of it. So today, pretty cool though, it's assembly, and I'm going to start with the sawhorses. Then after that, I will make sure that the sawhorses are indexed to the spreader shelf and also indexed to the bottom of the table. I don't know what I can do to change that. I know there are ways if I had to modify, but according to all of the diagrams and measurements and everything, I should be spot on. Assembling the sides, assembling the bottom, and then finally assembling the top, and then finishing it off and making sure everything goes together. Very cool day today. I'll take you along for the ride. Okay, so you have seen after I had the sawhorses put together with the hinges that I went ahead and tested them out. Everything is looking good. I went ahead and put them up on my bench. I put the spreader shelf on. I'm a big fan of that spreader shelf, and it fit immediately the first time. I love math, I love plans, and I love the fact that I can measure. Spence knows how to measure. These straps with the clips, I feel are necessary. I would not do this without them. I like to be able to just have the sawhorse, know that I can open it and it will not splay and fall out. With a spreader shelf, it would not. However, but while you're setting it up, you know, you can have them too wide or too narrow. So I like this, and I made them fairly tight, so they open just enough. Now I have the whole system, set it out there, set it off to the side so it's out of my way, but I know it's going to work. And then I'm on to getting everything else around. So there are the 4 spreaders, there are the 2 sides. I've went ahead and pre-drilled everything. There is that jig, that assembly jig where you clamp it and it spaces everything correctly without measurements. All the holes then line up for the pre-drilling. That's all done with math in the plans. It's amazing. These parts are all being glued, by the way. I'm using an exterior-based wood glue. Sorry for the camera angle and you can't see me putting the screws in. I have the camera mounted to a ladder and I can barely see the screen. I flip the screen around. It's a tiny little screen on my camera, so I can't really see it. I can see that it sees the bench, but I don't know exactly how much. So sorry for the bad camera angle. I've eliminated a lot of me screwing stuff in because you just can't see anything happening. So my apologies on that. There's that red drill, red impact driver. I won that from Renovations and Repairs out of Michigan. Richard, former Marine. Hooah. Love that guy. Love the channel. So anyway, I won that on one of his giveaways for 20 or 30,000 subscribers. So just amazing. I'm looking forward to getting 3,000 subscribers and I'm going to do my own giveaway. And I will not be giving that tool away. In honor of Richard and that giveaway, I went ahead and assembled this entire bench. If a screw had to be driven, it was driven with that red tool, even though I'm a yellow shop. So thank you, Richard. Here in action, right up close, you can see those spacers, those spreader jigs, if you will, assembly jigs. And it just spaces everything correctly, so you know that all of it's going to line up with the pre-drilled holes. So as I did this, I think prior to me actually assembling the sides, I realized I did not pre-drill my top and my bottom. So what I'm doing here is I am simply laying out, because I want to drill at 9 millimeters. So I measured in and I drew a line 9 millimeters, so it's in the middle of an 18 millimeter sheet of plywood. Drew lines so I knew where to go, and all of the screws line up with all of the dog holes. There is me pre-gluing. I did pre-glue the bottom. I'm using 1 5/8" trim screws. These are black drywall trim screws. Well, trim screws, they're not drywall, but they're just black. And I had a square drive bit on my red driver. Thinking that I had a better shot, I was flipping it around so you could see what was going on there. Now I'm taking those, the alignment jigs, or the assembly jigs out, and getting them ready to go again for the top. I did not glue the top down because I was concerned that maybe I would have to take the top off in order to re-chamfer. I have not gotten any dogs yet that require chamfers, so I don't know if I'll have to flip the top over, so I did not glue my top. Otherwise, just amazing stuff here. So here is the final bench. It is ready to go. Everything is done on the bench. I've sanded it. I've chamfered everything, even the edges. Here's my Milwaukee sweatshirt from Finish Carpentry TV. Richard McMurray out of Dallas, Fort Worth. Enjoy his channel. I've been a fan for a long time, a subscriber. Also, he has hooked me up with Brent Hull, who is really good into classical building, and I love that guy's channel as well. So really cool stuff. But I have some of Finish Carpentry's merch. And I think the boss is about to come in, so this will be cool. And here's the boss. She came out, and she's testing the weight.
Oh yeah, I have. Nice, look at all those dogs.
Here are all the patterns that I used. Again, sorry for I can't really get a really wide camera angle for you, but there are all the patterns that I used in order to make my smart bench. I did not bother getting out the extra templates that I pre-cut for the smart station because I haven't made that yet. There you go. There is everything, and everything is labeled. I've saved it, and a lot of that will help me build the smart bench very, very soon, and I'll document that. And there it is, finally a lightweight smart bench. And I know what it weighs too. I actually brought a set of scales home and I weighed it. And by gosh, it is lightweight. Thank you very much for sticking with me, folks. If you would like and subscribe, please comment, generate some discussion. You all have a great day. Thank you very much. Hope to see you on the next video. Bye-bye.